Franklin was in San Andreas, the 2004 one. Long before GTA 5, before the heists, before Chop and the whole crew, he was already standing on Grove Street. And almost nobody who played that game ever caught it. Not as Franklin. Back then, he was just one of the families. A background guy in a green shirt, the kind you shove past on the block 100 times and never once look at. He doesn't even get a name in the game. In the credits, he's one word: Solo. Young Melee, the man who played CJ, has said it himself. Walk up to one of the Grove Street guys in San Andreas, and that voice talking back at you is Solo. So who's Solo? Sean Fonteno, the same man who'd become Franklin 9 years later. On its own, that's a fun little bit of trivia, but it's not where the story stops. Fonteno and Melee aren't two random rappers Rockstar happened to book. They're cousins, real blood. Fonteno is the older one. Christopher Bellard, the rapper the world knows as Young Melee, is his younger cousin, and he's the voice of CJ. Sit with that a second. The guy who plays CJ and the guy who plays Franklin grew up in the same family, and that name, Solo, wasn't made up for the game. It came off the street. Fonteno's old nickname was OG Solo, so when Rockstar credited that Grove Street voice as Solo back in 2004, they weren't hiding some actor. They were putting his real name in the game before most of us had any idea who he was. San Andreas was his first game role ever. Franklin came almost a decade later. Here's why these two never sound fake for a single line. Neither one was a studio actor reading off a page. Fonteno came up in Watts, deep in South Central LA, running with the wrong crowd young before he pulled himself out of it. Melee grew up around the same world, the same blocks, the same gang life, pulling at the edges of everything. Both of them turned to rap to get out. Melee's music finally caught fire around 2000, with a push from West Coast veteran King T, and by the time Rockstar came knocking for San Andreas, he'd already spent years earning that voice on real records. So when CJ talks about the hood, or Franklin talks about wanting more than the corner he grew up on, that's not a writer guessing at it. That's two men who actually lived a version of it. Los Santos is just Los Angeles with the name changed. These two are the real thing from the real city. The man who tied them both to Rockstar is DJ Pooh. If you know old school LA rap, you know Pooh. If you've seen the movie Friday, you've seen him too. He played Red. Pooh worked on San Andreas back in the day. Years later, he came back to help make GTA 5. He knew Fonteno. He's the whole reason Fonteno ever walked into that recording booth at all. And here's where the casting turns into a story worth telling. When Rockstar was looking for Franklin, Fonteno wasn't chasing the part. He was helping other guys get it. He'd bring dudes in, run lines with them, try to land one of them the role. Weeks of that. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Rockstar stopped watching the guys he was bringing in and started watching him. Problem was, Fonteno was rusty. His last real acting job had been a movie called The Wash, back in 2001. Carrying a lead in the biggest game Rockstar had ever built was a whole different animal. So he leaned on the two men sitting in the booth next to him. Ned Luke, who played Michael, Stephen Ogg, who played Trevor. He watched how they worked and let them sharpen him up. He's talked about the trick of it since, how you shut your eyes in a bare studio and force yourself to believe an empty floor is somebody's living room. That's the job. Fill a room that isn't there. And he didn't just lend his voice, he did the motion capture too. Franklin's walk, the way he stands, the way he throws his shoulders, that's Fonteno's body inside the character. And it's his face too. Put Franklin next to Fonteno and it's the same man. Rockstar didn't borrow a voice and stick it on a stranger, they built the whole character on him, top to bottom. He put all of that in. And then he didn't tell his own cousin. Think about what that means. Fonteno lands the lead in what becomes one of the best-selling games ever made. His family. And Melee finds out late, more or less the way the rest of the world did. That one stung. Melee's spoken about it plenty since then. It wasn't that his cousin got to be Franklin, he was happy for him on that. What got under his skin was being left out of the loop. You don't sit on news that big and keep your own family guessing. They squashed it eventually. They're good now. Melee even gives his cousin real credit, says he liked watching Franklin try to climb out of the streets and make something better. But he still won't hand over the crown, and honestly, why would he? Ask him who's the better character and he'll tell you flat, CJ will always be the best protagonist. Fonteno can have GTA 5. San Andreas belongs to Melee, and he's not letting go of it. And none of this is fan gossip stitched together from clips. Fonteno wrote it down himself. In 2022, he put out a book called Game Changer, where he lays out his whole life, the streets he came up on, and how GTA 5 got made from the inside. The cousin story, the casting, all the years before any of it, that's his own account in his own words. This is a man who got nominated back in 2014 alongside the rest of the cast for the voice work on GTA 5, and then turned around and told the behind-the-scenes story himself. So the answer's been sitting in plain sight for years. Nobody was reading it. And if you think the CJ Crown talk is just a rapper talking trash, look at how tight these two actually still are. Late 2020, Fonteno and Slink Johnson, the man who played Lamar, filmed themselves acting out the whole Lamar roasts Franklin scene for real. In the flesh. Slink standing there tearing into Fonteno about his haircut, word for word, exactly the way it plays in the game. The internet lost its mind. People cut hundreds of versions of it, swapping Lamar out for Darth Vader, for Mario, for Sonic, for whoever they wanted. A cutscene from 2013 turned into a fresh meme overnight, all because the actual actors showed up to do it live. Then there's the Kai Cenat moment. Fonteno's on stream, pulls out his phone, and calls his cousin right there in front of everyone. Melee picks up and drops CJ's most famous line, the one every player who ever touched San Andreas has heard. Ah shit, here we go again. 20 years after the game shipped, the real CJ says it down the phone while the real Franklin sits next to the camera grinning. That's the family in one clip. Two cousins, two of the most recognized voices in the whole series, still messing around like it's nothing. And Rockstar clearly never forgot what they had in Fonteno. When they finally brought Franklin back for real, in the 2021 contract update for GTA Online, they didn't recast him. They called Fonteno back to play the part again, older, richer, running his own business now. Stephen Ogg came back as Trevor 2 years earlier. The company keeps reaching for the same men, because you can't fake what those two put into it the first time. So the two men are blood, which leaves the obvious question just hanging there. What about the characters? Are CJ and Franklin cousins in the games too? No. And this is the twist that trips people up. San Andreas and GTA 5 don't happen in the same world. Rockstar runs its games in separate timelines. The older games, San Andreas included, sit in one continuity. GTA 5 is a clean restart, built from the ground up, a brand new Los Santos, with a new map, new history, new everybody. When they crossed from the old era into the new one, they wiped the board. Same city name, different universe entirely. CJ and Franklin have never met and never will, because they don't live in the same version of the place. The two actors share a bloodline. The two characters share nothing at all. Well, almost nothing. They share one thing, a street, Grove Street, the same green and gold block CJ fought and bled and lost people over back in 2004. That street shows up again in GTA 5, sitting there in Franklin City like an old ghost. Different game, different world, same corner. And the man who'd grow up to play Franklin was standing on the original version of it years before anyone knew his face, in that green shirt, saying lines nobody bothered to remember. There's a version of this where none of it happens. If Fonteno never runs with DJ Pooh, if Pooh never gets pulled onto San Andreas, if nobody thinks to stick a young LA rapper named Solo into a crowd of Grove Street gang members for a couple of throwaway lines, then maybe there's no Fonteno on Rockstar's radar in 2011, and Franklin sounds like somebody else entirely. The whole chain runs back to one small cameo almost nobody noticed. One green shirt, one word in the credits. It's part of why fans now pick apart every new Rockstar game, listening hard for a voice they've heard before. Rockstar's pulled this move already. They took a young LA rapper out of a crowd of San Andreas gang members and turned him into the face of a game that sold tens of millions. Once you know they'll do that, you start hearing ghosts in every trailer. One thing before we're done. The offers are all down in the description, and there's another one waiting in the pinned comment. Go take a look. So next time you boot up San Andreas, go find Grove Street, walk up to one of the families and just listen. That voice is Franklin. He's been standing on that block for over 20 years, waiting for somebody to finally notice him.